Ambassador, I guess I want to start with your reaction to this kind of level of discord at this kind of meeting. It's I think, without precedent.
Oh, it's shocking, actually. But I'll tell you, over the last few weeks, there was a lead into this. And one of the problems that we have, and those of you in the media and those of us watching this, we watch each step along the way. But let's go back in time just a little bit. June 1st. The president makes the decision not to exempt a number of countries, including much of the G7, on steel and aluminum tariffs. He could have done this differently. He could have just waited 9 days and had that conversation at the G7 meeting with our best friends, our trading partners, et cetera, but made the decision to do this overt move. That, in turn, caused a reaction from each of the countries, and retaliatory tariffs were either planned or actually put in place. And then, of course, there were rumors and stories that he may not come because he was so upset because of the retaliation. Right. He does come, but he's late, and he proposes Russia to join the G8, a hostile move because there was no way that was going to be accepted. Comes to the conference late, shows up to meetings late, calls an impromptu press conference at the end, and uses language that I think is indicative of where we're going with NAFTA, which is not a good place because, again, he brings up the sunset provisions. So we have a problem here, and I think the problem is larger because I actually think that the president was going out of his way to be incredibly disruptive to the world order and to the G7 as it exists. And we're looking at each of these individual points, but collectively, no one would behave this way unless they wanted to ruin the party.
And we've seen a strong reaction already from Canada. The Prime Minister saying that Canada will not be pushed around. His Foreign Minister saying, condemning the U.S. ad hominem attacks. Canada started, as any other country, with a charm offensive towards the new president. Will this approach change?
Well, you know, I think you have to continue to engage, and you continue to have conversations, and you do the best you can to find a path forward. But if that path forward is, as I think, that the president wants to be completely disruptive to Western liberal democratic institutions, that includes NAFTA as a trade pact that we've had now coming up on 25 years. He has been talking about this for years as to how bad it is. I think that the path is going to be a bit more challenging going forward. I think the likelihood of the U.S. backing away now of steel and aluminum tariffs is small. I think Canada will then proceed. And then the question is, what's the next step for the U.S.? And I hope we take a deep breath here and find a good course and a good path for diplomacy and conversations. But I fear that the president will react poorly, as he has done all along the way.
And, of course, now Bruce raising this issue of the amount that his NATO allies spend on their militaries, not anything compared to the U.S., not fair, according to President Trump. Is this just another salvo in what will be a new strain of bad relations with his NATO allies?
Yeah, I think it just is a compounding of the various issues. He's looking, you know, this man has the belief that every agreement that the U.S. has entered into since World War II, we've been taken advantage of. I think it's pretty amazing we've been able to build the country we have being taken advantage of to the extent that he thinks we have. But in all reality, you know, we don't have any of these agreements with Russia and with China and with some of these other countries he seems to be embracing these days. And North Korea, you know, he talked about going to North Korea, and the preparation for that was attitude. And he needs a good attitude. Well, I think he had a really bad attitude with his friends here, the G7.